Hey y'all, welcome back to Convos with Bree. I'm Bree, Bree, and today is day 35 of the Visibility Challenge. Today I want to talk a little bit about being sober. I was a big time drinker and I have always been a big supporter of marijuana. I think that there are a lot of benefits to in consuming marijuana. I also think that mushrooms have opened my entire world. The way I think, the way I feel, the way I heal, all of it. But I see so many people that misuse substances. And I definitely understand how easy it is to get swept up in addiction. And when I drank, I drank. I based my whole life around when I could drink, when I could go be my real self. and it I wasn't really I didn't really feel like my real self unless I was drinking. That's the only time I really ever felt free. And I drank early, and I smoked early days. I'm talking like 13, 14. All of us did. All the people I hung around with, we hung around a lot of older kids, and it just ended up being like a way of life. And honestly, I didn't know a lot of people that didn't drink. Even looking back, I can't really think of anyone that didn't drink. And if they didn't, I didn't notice. So to me, it was just so normal. And I really enjoyed a lot of that life. But then as I got older, things started to change. And I was grumpy when I had to do anything other than having a good time and having a drink. And if I had to be sober, I didn't really want to go, if I'm honest. And everything in my life, my friend group, my activities, everything I did involved drinking. When people wanted to get together, they didn't say, "Hey, Bree, do you want to go and do this sober activity?" It was, "Hey, girl, you want to get a drink with me?" And that was all it felt like there was to do. And I, when I hit a really, really hard period in my life, I lost somebody incredibly important to me, and I couldn't handle the loss at all. And I went off the deep end, and I was doing nothing but drinking for that first year, just trying to numb it out and run away. And then I found yoga, and yoga started changing my life and giving me clarity that I hadn't had in so long. And drinking was really getting in the way of my yoga life and where I was going. But then that was my whole world still. So it was like if I wanted to hang out, that's all anybody was doing. And even the most simple activities were revolving around drinking. It wasn't just go paint, it was paint and drink. It wasn't go on a walk, it was go walk to different bars. It was just everything was drinking. And I didn't know how to be strong enough, honestly, to just say no, to just drink water. People made fun of you then, and they just really egged it on like it was not acceptable not to drink. And then one year, it was right before New Year's, I decided that I was going to quit drinking for 1 year. And it was the scariest thing ever because who was I without drinking? And I had done little challenges up to that point. But I had never done longer than like a month. And so I really didn't know what this was going to look like or if I was even going to be able to do a whole year. When I was about 6 months in, I thought maybe I had gotten everything that I needed out of it. I missed being able to be social. I missed being able to just be free. Things were not easy. Nobody seemed to know how to be around me if we weren't drinking. All of a sudden, I wasn't getting invited to things because people didn't want to invite me if I wasn't drinking. And it just wasn't acceptable if I was only drinking water, which is so crazy because then I could have driven everybody everywhere. But whatever. It just felt weird to them to even invite me. And honestly, without the booze, I didn't want to stay out that long anyway. And it wasn't the same. The minute that everyone around me started having that slurry speech and they were just, had too much, my skin crawled. It felt so ick in my soul. And I just wanted to get out of there. I just wanted to be away from all of that. And I started healing a lot of things and I started understanding where a lot of issues came from drinking and from everything that happened around me when I was growing up and the pressure that I felt from others and all kinds of things. And a lot of resentment started to bubble up, and I didn't know how to really handle all these feelings sober. But I wasn't entirely sober. I smoked a lot of weed, and weed really helped me because it really grounded me when I needed it, and it really made me feel more connected to the pain and the path I had to take to heal it. So it still made me feel like I was having fun and I was able to do something, but it wasn't the same. And I wanted more calm. I wanted more peace when I was smoking. And I was a big fan of street weed for a long, long, long time. And then when they legalized it, I was so excited. And I started getting stuff from the dispensaries, and I was living in legal states. It was phenomenal because Iowa was so behind on the times, and I just didn't love a lot of things about Iowa in that sense. And so moving to Arizona, being so close to California, it was amazing. And everything was great for a while. But then I started getting sick. I started getting this weird cough that would not go away that I had never had before. And it didn't feel the same. The high started to feel different. And I had this sneaking suspicion that weed being controlled by the government was not a good thing. And then I started finding out that in California, a lot of these brands were getting busted for using these chemicals that would actually eat away at your brain. Surprise! Shocking. And I started learning all these things that were just not aligning with me. This was no longer like somebody who was thrilled and passionate and growing small batches. This was mass production and quotas and regulations and greed. And if I know anything, it is when the government gets involved, especially when something is banned or controlled, and then all of a sudden it's not. They don't do that because of the greater good. They do that because they have found a way to control it and to put more greed into it and get more means for themselves. I quit smoking and I had leaned on it for a long time. And I tried to quit a while back. And it was funny because I was about 3.5 years in without drinking. And then we went to the Ozarks, and I knew some really great bartenders, and they had some really delicious sounding drinks. And I was right on the lake, and I wanted to know who I was now. I wanted to know who I could be and if it was different than who I was before. I wanted to see if 3.5 years without alcohol, and I'm talking not a single drop. I didn't have a drink here or there or try anything, nothing. And I wanted to know if it made a difference, if I was really changed. So I decided that I was going to try. And here's the other thing, the number, tracking how long you have been sober is supposed to be this way to celebrate and to keep yourself on track and in alignment and focused on the greater good and like how long you've already put in. But I hated the number. Counting the days felt like a prison. It felt like, to me, it was like, how long until you slip? And I just didn't like it. It did not work the way that it works for others for me. And I wanted to break the number so that I never had to think about this again. And I had a drink. And I think the first thing I had was a mudslide. And it was amazing. And it tasted so good. And then I tried all these drinks. I had a shift drink every day after work. And I hung out with friends. And like, I'd have a couple, but I didn't have the desire to get out of control anymore. And I didn't like the way I felt after more than 2 to 3 drinks. And even then, 3 drinks felt like too much. And I started paying attention to my body, and my body didn't feel good. And I didn't like the way my skin looked. I didn't like the way I felt. I didn't like anything about the aftermath. And even when I would be in the middle of having a drink, it just, my body was like saying, no, I don't want this in here. So I decided after a couple months of being back in that I was going to quit again. But I wasn't keeping track this time. And this time was going to be different. If there was a special occasion and I wanted to have a drink, I could have one. If I wanted to have a glass of wine or have a margarita or celebrate with friends, I was giving myself the option to do that if I wanted to. And if I didn't, I knew I'd say no. And I also knew that I could really revolve my life around it. Like if I wanted to go out and celebrate and have a couple, I could. And then I could take a few days to plan on just taking care of my body and doing some self-care, self-love afterwards. And I would be prepared for the after effects. And I did that for a little bit. And then ultimately, I didn't really care for that either. So while I still have the same just kind of like feeling around it, and I just have the same notion that if I want to, I will. I have this freedom. I have a freedom to trust myself, to know that I'm not an alcoholic anymore. I'm not that version of myself. And how I feel is more important than running away or numbing out. And now, if I'm in the middle of a hard thing, I don't even think about alcohol. I think about things that will make this feel better, will alleviate what I am going through, and how I can process it into something useful. My mindset is strong. My desire to care for myself and love on my body is strong. My relationship with myself is intact. And my confidence is good. My confidence in where I'm going and what I'm doing is good. And I just trust myself now. And I did not trust myself before. And I did not have power or any control over substances before. And then when I stopped drinking again, I decided that I wanted to be all the way sober for once. And I decided I was going to do a year. And I lasted about a month because what I did not know, because I have smoked for a long time. And when I had my son, I quit everything. And it wasn't hard to do then. But this time around, I'm telling you, y'all, they're doing something to the weed. This was not anything that I have ever experienced before. And I have started and stopped numerous times throughout my life. But I was having the most wicked, unbelievable nightmares to where I would wake up. And if I went back to sleep, I would fall right back into the same nightmare over and over and over again. And I was not getting any sleep. I felt like I was running a marathon the entire time. I was exhausted. I was moody. I was spent, y'all. I was still trying to maintain everything that I had on my plate. I was still trying to build this business. I was still trying to do all of these things. And I couldn't get more than like 30 minutes of interrupted sleep, interrupted by these dreams and these nightmares. It was intense. And I caved and I didn't want to talk about it. I did not want to say I failed. I did not want to let anybody know. And then I started smoking again, and I could not get away from the negative side effects from the dispensary weed. My whole body was hurting. The body pain was like lighting up. It felt like it was highlighting all over my body, which at first I found useful because I could wrap new awareness around it. But then I started realizing that most of this was coming from my lungs, and most of this was coming from my throat and internal pathways that the weed was traveling, the smoke was traveling, all of the things were traveling. And I tried to do edibles, but they have notoriously been hit or miss, and it just wasn't worth it. It just wasn't worth it. And most of the time, the amount that I would have to take to even feel it would end up just making me feel sick. And I just realized it was about more than this, more than being sick, more than thinking the government is doing some shady shit. It was about, I just didn't want to rely on any substances anymore. I didn't want to need anything to enjoy my life. And I just wanted to feel everything fully. I wanted to just know who I was without anything, because other than being pregnant, I hadn't known what it was like since I was 13, 14. And that's a long time when I just turned 39. That's a long time to roller coaster with substances. And I took some mushrooms and I am highly susceptible to mushrooms. So I cannot take as much as people think that you should take. And I would just do a very small dose, which most people call microdosing. I don't know how those people microdose and then go about their day. I could microdose and go on a 12-hour trip where I was just crying and laughing and understanding everything on a whole new level for like 12 hours. And there was no way I was going into public like that. But the things that it did for me, it really opened up everything. It made me face my fears. It allowed me to see what was going on in my unconscious energy, is what I really believe it was doing. But then I saw all these people were doing this every single day. And I realized that people were getting hooked on mushrooms the way that they were weed, the way they were alcohol, the way they were cigarettes, the way it was with anything. And I didn't want any of that. I wanted to understand it and then I wanted to move on. So I decided to give up everything. And it's great because my partner is sober completely with me as well. And we just decided to meet who we are without anything. And it hasn't been easy, but it's actually been easier than I expected it to be. I started having nightmares again. And then I started reading. I started reading instead of watching TV right before I went to bed. And the nightmares stopped. And I started doing this and I started writing more and I started diving into all the things that light me up that I felt blocked by when I was using substances. And all of that went away. My body pain lessened. I hardly ever cough anymore. And if I do, it's genuinely just because of normal whatever things or allergies. I take an allergy pill and poof, I'm just fine. And I'm breathing better. I'm moving better. I just feel really, really good. And I know that this will keep getting better every day. I still believe in the power of it, but I just think that if you're not growing it on your own, you really don't know what you're getting. And granted, it's the same way with food and everything in this world. I mean, they talk about it all the time about how if you travel to other countries, they don't have wax on their fruit and they don't have all of this ready to make stuff that we do that's just packed full of preservatives and chemicals and toxins and all of these things. And you can eat and feel better, and people don't have issues the way that we do here. And I just wish we could have a natural world, I'm really, don't be surprised if that's the way my life goes, because I have been calling that in and being called to it for a long time. But everything rolls out as it should. And right now, I'm just really proud of myself because I don't smoke weed anymore. I don't drink alcohol anymore. And granted, I leave myself open to, if the occasion is right, I can say yes. I'm not counting days. I have no idea how long it's been. I just know that it's been long enough that my life is different. And I know this time is different and it is sticking. I don't need it anymore. I don't see it the same way. I don't crave it like I used to. I don't revolve my schedule around it anymore. And it's nice to see everything that's changing because of that. If you are feeling called to being totally sober, I'm here. We can totally have a conversation about it. I definitely say that if you're feeling curious, if you're feeling called to it, you should try it. You really should. You should, and give yourself like a solid chunk of time to just do it and to be sober, because it's so funny when I said that when I was 6 months into not drinking, I almost threw in the towel and celebrated, but I knew I needed that year because I needed to make sure that I didn't slip back into it before I could recognize what had changed and who I was without it. And when I hit 6 months, I was like, this has not been enough time. It just hasn't. And when I hit a year, it was so funny because I thought I'd be so ready to jump back in, but I realized it still hadn't been enough time. 3.5 years was when I felt really confident that I was ready to break the streak. I was ready to test the waters. And I was right. And I was able to trust myself, and it did feel amazing. But if I would have done it before that 3-year mark, I don't think that it would have went the same. And I'm proud of me that I trusted myself. I'm proud of me that I stuck to it this time. I'm proud of Marco for being so supportive and wanting to understand himself without substances as well and see where it took us. And I definitely think if you're curious, it's a call to find a deeper side of yourself. It's not that things have to be bad. It's not that you have to suddenly hate them and not understand people who still do it or get preachy about it. It's literally just discovering more of yourself and allowing people to be whoever they are. And if everything falls apart for you the way it did for me, and you lose most of the people that you once knew and thought you'd have forever, just know that it makes space. It makes space for so many new things, so many new people who are on a similar path or that understand where you are or that can do other things. And you will want to be there. If you just give it time, eventually it all comes together. It all makes sense. And it all becomes incredibly beautiful. I've never met anyone that regrets choosing sober. I've never met anyone that has regretted the path to self that unfolds in sober. And remember, y'all, nothing meant for you will miss you. Thanks for being here, y'all.